Well, last week, Somalia marked the one-year anniversary of the deadliest terrorist attack in Africa's history. A car bomb that ripped through the capital Mogadishu, killing nearly 600 people. No one claimed responsibility for the bombing, but it had the hallmarks of the terrorist group Al-Shabaab. As Mohammed Sheikh Noor reports from Mogadishu, some victims are still suffering from the effects of the blast.
October 14 brings back awful memories for Alis Ilmi, a Somali father of 12 children who survived Africa's deadliest terror attack. On that day last year, Ilmi was almost burnt to death when a huge truck bomb exploded at Mogadishu's K5 junction. Ilmi was just a few steps from the blast, the deadliest terrorist attack in African history.
I
said to myself, killers will come, so run away from the scene before they come for you. But my legs were broken and my head and hands were injured.
The bombing engulfed a whole neighborhood, killing nearly 600 people and leaving hundreds more, like Ilmi, permanently scarred.
My biggest worry is that the hospitals in the country can't do much to treat me. Shrapnel is lodged in my throat. It's what's blocking my voice.
Freelance Somali cameraman Al-Nur Siad was on assignment for VOA when he was killed in the attack. Other victims were left with psychological wounds.
I was taken to Turkey for treatment, but the attack left a major impact on my mental health.
On Sunday, Somalis gathered at the site of the attack for the one-year anniversary to honor the victims, paying respects with a minute of silence. Somalia's Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khairi told the crowd the tragedy has brought the country closer together.
The terrorists believed that we could not recover from that attack and that we could no longer exist as a nation. But their hateful assault has united us more than at any other time in the past.
The memorial coincided with the execution of one of the men accused of planning the bombing. Authorities blamed the Al-Shabaab terrorist group, though it never claimed responsibility. 1 year after this shocking crime, Al-Shabaab continues to launch regular attacks in Somalia. Every time they do, Somalis pick up the pieces and do their best to rebuild. Mohammed Sheikh Noor for VOA News, Mogadishu.
Flooding in parts of the country has left many people displaced, infrastructure destroyed, and farmlands ruined. State and national authorities have been making efforts to provide for those affected in camps, but many of the farmers among them are concerned about the damage already done to their farms and crops, which they left behind, what they will be returning to after the floods. Here's that story.
As the rainy season bows to the dry season and floodwaters across the country recede, many who are displaced are looking forward to returning home, but not for farmers amongst them like these ones in this camp in Anambra State.
All the seedlings, all the farm inputs were destroyed. So we need to buy another one, and nobody is with money now because the flood come at the time when those things were not ripe to be harvested.
Let God help us because all our things is damaged. So let God help us and let government help us to build another crops in the farm.
It's also tales of pain in other states where communities are still flooded, such as in Edo State in the south-south region.
Live occupy everywhere. Destroy our teeth, destroy cassava, rice, everything. See our house for down. If you see all the house where they for down. Live and destroy everywhere.
Some of the worst hit states are in the northern and middle belt regions, which produce most of the food for the country. In Niger State, unprecedented water levels left communities and farmland submerged. Local authorities in Kwara State say over 150,000 hectares of rice farms have been lost to floods.
Over 150,000 hectares of rice farm was damaged, destroyed. You can't get anything there now except water. Then we have over 200,000 farmers that have been displaced.
Nigeria has been aiming for self-sufficiency in rice production, as part of an agricultural drive, but there are fears that the impact on farming activities will also reduce yield in other crops and, in turn, food security.
In the first place, there won't be much of the domestic rice that will not be available. We're expecting that about 25–30% would not be available as expected. And if you are saying that, okay, limit importation of rice, limit importation of wheat, and if these are being limited, so the supply will have gone down, the demand still remain or will have increased given the population growth rate, that means the prices will go up.
The level of flooding this year comes as no surprise, according to the environmentalists who link it to climate change and certain human activities. They call for urgent steps to be taken.
The capacity of flooding that are coming now are overwhelming the dams that are available. So it's better we think about developing more dams around those rivers so that we can contain the things that, especially in this disaster landscape we are facing.
Climate smart agriculture is key. Climate smart agriculture rests basically on the research institutes and universities, particularly universities of agriculture. So these climate smart agriculture strategies need to be downloaded to the understanding of the various farmers.
Government at national and the state level have been catering to the immediate needs of displaced persons in camps, while some have promised to provide more support after they return to their communities to help the recovery from their losses.
It's now time for a short break, but as we do, we remind you to visit our website, channelstv.com, for news and other programming around the clock. You can also find us on youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, Malawi's struggling tourism industry and the government's plan to attract more tourists. That story after the break.